Welcome to Awa Sunwire. Today we're talking about Ka Siong's defense of Chinese school hall rental income. And this is really heating up, isn't it? We're looking at hundreds of schools possibly losing a really vital source of money, all kicked off by that statement from Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim about events in government schools.
That's right. And the fear, it's understandable because the statement that caused all this was pretty broad. Prime Minister basically said government schools cannot hold any functions where alcohol is involved, full stop.
Sounds straightforward, maybe.
On the surface, yes, a clear rule.
Yeah.
But apply that to these partially aided schools and, well, it hits their very ability to function.
Exactly. That's the core issue. And Ka Siong was very quick to jump in on this. He pointed straight to the financial disaster this could mean. We're not talking small numbers here.
No, not at all.
It's like 890 partially aided Chinese primary schools and then another 81 national-type secondary schools. They depend on renting out these halls. It's a lifeline. For many, losing it is. It's potentially crippling.
Yeah, and to really get the weight of his argument, you have to understand what partially aided means in practice. It's sort of a mixed system.
Okay.
The government, usually handles teacher salaries, maybe some basic utilities, but the big stuff, building upkeep, new facilities, tech upgrades, funding big developments, that money has to come from the community.
Right. So the government provides the basics, but anything extra, anything for real quality or long-term health, that's on the community shoulders.
Precisely. They're constantly fundraising, basically.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why these rental halls were built in the first place. Ka Siong made a strong point here. He said when the Chinese community raised, millions of ringgit for these halls, it wasn't just for fun.
No, it was strategic.
Absolutely. It was a deliberate plan to create a reliable income stream, self-sufficiency. They built these halls so the rental money could fund the school's development, pay for maintenance year after year.
Can you walk us through that a bit more, the history behind this?
Sure. It's a practice that goes back decades. Literally means nurturing the school. It reflects this deep community belief, taking responsibility for the school's health, its growth. The community essentially helps out the government, filling the funding gaps. And these halls, often they're huge modern facilities, sometimes the only place in town big enough for, say, a large wedding dinner or an association gala.
Right. Makes sense.
So Ka Siong's argument is, if you cut off this income, the very income the community designed to keep the school going, you're basically attacking this long tradition of self-help and community effort.
You're pulling the rug out from under a system that's worked for generations.
Exactly. It's not just about the money. It's about undermining that whole model.
Okay, so we've got the financial angle, the history, the community commitment, but it goes deeper, doesn't it? Ka Siong also brought up autonomy.
Yes, that's a key part of his pushback, the critique of the one-size-fits-all approach, or Yido-ki, as he termed it.
Meaning a blanket ban just doesn't work here?
Right. He argues it ignores who owns and runs these halls. His point is firm. These halls are school property.
So even if it's on land designated for a government school, the fact the community funded and built it changes things. That's the argument.
That's the core tension, yes. Ka Siong insists the board of directors should have the power, the discretion, to decide how the hall gets used. These boards are made up of local people, stakeholders. They're responsible for the school's future. They know the local context.
To let them manage it responsibly.
That's his position. Applying a rule meant for fully government-funded places onto these unique, partially aided schools just doesn't fit. It ignores how they actually operate.
Okay, but let's just, consider the other side for a second. If the government makes an exception here, allows these community-funded assets on government-linked land to bypass a national policy on alcohol, well, where does it stop? Isn't the government trying to set a consistent standard across all premises that fall under its umbrella, regardless of funding origin?
That's the policy challenge, absolutely. But Ka Siong circles back to the specific history and the funding reality. He'd argue the reliance on hall income isn't some random choice. It's baked into the system. It's how these schools manage to offer quality education.
So forcing policy equality without acknowledging the funding inequality is unfair.
That's his view. Unfair and damaging. He argues you have to trust the Dong Shihui because their job, legally, is to keep the school financially sound. Take away their rental power, you take away their ability to do that job.
Right, I see the connection now. And this leads directly into the cultural dimension, doesn't it?
It does, very directly. Ka Siong explicitly linked this ban to Malaysia's diverse society. He pointed out, look, most of the people renting these halls for big events, weddings, association dinners, community gatherings, they're non-Muslims.
And for many non-Muslim communities, having alcohol at these kinds of functions is, well, it's normal. It's part of the culture, part of the social tradition.
Exactly. And Ka Siong stressed that. He said the food and beverage customs of non-Muslims need to be respected. His argument is that allowing these events, as they've always happened, is actually essential for Malaysia to be genuinely diverse and inclusive.
So banning it feels like.
Feels like imposing one community's norms on everyone else, especially when it happens in a facility largely built and used by the non-Muslim community for their own cultural events. It's seen as ignoring historical practice and potentially pushing towards a less diverse cultural landscape.
It's definitely a complex mix of finance, autonomy, and culture, and the setting where Ka Siong said all this matters too, right?
Absolutely critical. He wasn't just issuing a press statement. He made these remarks while opening the Malaysian Chinese Association Kelantan State Convention.
So speaking directly to his party base.
Yes, it instantly makes it more than just a comment on regulations. It becomes a political declaration delivered to a very relevant audience. It adds a layer of political urgency.
And he connected it straight to Malaysian Chinese Association's own political goals too.
He did. While he was there, he specifically urged the Kelantan Malaysian Chinese Association leadership to work harder, get more young people involved, improve community service.
Why? What was the stated aim?
The message was pretty direct. Addressing community concerns like this school hall issue, defending cultural space, that's how the party rebuilds trust and strength.
So defending the funding model becomes a rallying point for the party itself,
Yeah.
aimed at future elections.
That was the explicit connection made. Building capital for victory, as he put it. They're looking strategically at seats the Malaysian Chinese Association traditionally contests, like Kota Lama state seat, which was mentioned. It shows how a very practical issue, school funding, gets woven directly into broader political strategy and election campaigning.
Okay, so as we wrap this up, what's the main thing for you, the listener, to take away from this whole conflict?
I think the key thing is how this highlights a fundamental friction point in Malaysia's education system. You have community-funded assets operating within a government framework. Who really calls the shots? The system itself is mixed, hybrid, but this policy attempts a uniform approach. And that clash, that's where you see the sparks fly. It shows how deeply linked finance, culture, and school governance really are.
Which leaves us with a pretty significant question for you to think about. If a community raises its own money, builds its own facilities for a school, should they then lose the autonomy to manage that asset according to their needs and traditions? Does applying a blanket government policy in this way undermine that whole spirit of community self-reliance that built the hall in the first place? And looking forward, if communities feel their self-funded efforts can just be overruled later, what does that mean for future fundraising? For building the next generation of school facilities? It's a really fine line between national rules and local control. We'd be interested to hear what you think.
It's definitely a critical point for how education gets funded down the line.
Remember to like and subscribe for more videos like this.